Listen up, get ready, I'm not gonna take no more. There's a revolution, a revelation going on in my soul. Buckle up, get ready.
Hello and welcome, friends, neighbors, family. Welcome, all you citizens of the world. I'm Michael James here in Chicago, and we're here for you with another episode of the Live from the Heartland show. This one is going to be number 131 since the beginning of the pandemic, which in a lot of ways we are still in big time. And it's for the week of December 18th in the year 2022. We're recording this over a couple of days, the 15th and the 16th. Our home base is WLUW, where you can hear the show at WLUW.org or 88.7 on Saturdays at 9. There are other ways to see it I'll mention later. And we are really happy today that our co-producer and sometimes a co-host, Kathleen Hogan, Katy Hogan, is here with us today. Good morning to you, Katy.
Good morning, Michael.
Well, you've been doing a lot of great work out there leading up to just the most recent election, and I know you're involved in the one coming up in Chicago for mayor and alder people, but I'm so happy that you were able to join us today. And let's start off and hear something that's good happening in your life, and then I'll share one of mine.
Well, okay. I guess this week, the good thing is that I was reconnected with my Pilates class. For some reason, my email got garbled on the big send, and so I've missed my Pilates classes for a couple months. And just this week, I've now taken 2. Thank you. And
well,
thank
it's doing great for you. You look terrific this morning.
Oh my
God.
For
me, a good thing that happened was that I've been, I go to the YMCA for my pool workout. I've upped it to 5 days a week. And in recent month or so, there's a lifeguard named Sean who, in the absence of my underwater iPod, which broke down, and they don't make iPods anymore, and I'm not sure how to fix it. There are other underwater versions. But this fellow, Sean, has been playing music in the pool. And this morning, when I was at the pool, he said, "What do you want to hear?" I said, "How about some John Coltrane?" So I did my dancing in the water deal to John Coltrane, doing my favorite things, as well as a tune with singer Johnny Hartman, who I met on the South Side back in about 1962. So that was good. Good way to start the day and get ready for you online. How about telling us something that's not so good? There's a list of them here on our little script. What do you got?
Well, folks, for those of you out there, this is the first time I've done banter with Michael in many months, so we didn't really practice. I did notice that the Atlantic magazine, which I don't get, but I do check it out online every once in a while because they come up with some things that pop across. They basically, in an article happening right now, they're called Elon Musk a right-wing activist, a far-right activist, and then a right-wing reactionary in the article itself. And, I just want to ask you, Michael, how's reading Twitter for you these days?
Well, I got to say that while some of our friends have Twitter, I've never gone that route.
Oh, okay.
I have enough trouble with Instagram and Facebook and whatever. But the thing on the Musk thing regarding Twitter, I'm just sort of following it. It sounds like he's sabotaging. They took away all the checks and balances of by principled people. But what I saw just recently this week was that he had cut off all of Ukraine, and they couldn't get on. And I don't know if that's true. I would have thought it would be all over the news. I haven't seen any more on it. So
where did you see that information?
Well, I look in, I'm online. So a lot of times it would be The Guardian or the New York Times or.
So in other words,
I don't know yet. I'll track it down. But someone who uses Twitter might want to send us an email, fatback@AOL, and let us know what they know about that. The technology is great. One other bad thing, there's a lot of bad things going on, but one thing that I didn't report last week, but that I got it, I believe, from The Guardian, was the Keystone Pipeline. You all remember that? There's a leak Oh, what a surprise. 14,000 barrels of oil went into a creek in Washington County, Kansas, the biggest oil spill yet connected to the Keystone Pipeline. So the saga of the broken pipelines continues and the danger to all of us continues. Let's hope that we get a better thing. Let me see. I got one more, and then I'll go back to you, Katie. Last week, we reported that the new president named Castillo in Peru, who is a peasant, a union organizer, a bus driver, he's had a hard time governing. Obviously, he didn't have control of the legislature, and he tried to kind of cancel Congress, and they deposed him. And now they've declared a state of emergency, and there are demonstrations all over the country because Castillo did win the popular vote, and he was part of the kind of wave of move to the left of Latin American governments. So watch that one because it's in the news now. What do you got, Katie, on our upcoming election?
Okay. Full disclosure, I'm currently working for the reelection of our alderwoman, Mayor. Alderwoman
Not yet.
Mayor Maria Haddon in the 49th Ward, and having a good time doing it. I clearly old OG on this particular campaign, working again with young people, which I love to do. So that's the disclosure part. And I'm watching this mayoral race get a little more interesting. We have Cam Buckner came out last week laying down a challenge to Chewy based on some $200,000 that came from that crypto guy who went bankrupt last week and is now under arrest in the Bahamas. Anyway, and I'm not even sure what form and how this money came to Congressman Garcia, but Cam Buckner, as a candidate for mayor, is throwing down that challenge. He actually also threw it down to Lori Lightfoot, but I don't have the details on that, on what, if anything, she actually interacted with this guy on. But part of that criticism comes when you claim, as Chewy and his campaign did this week, that he would be the front runner in this race. And the four top ones, according to one article I read, would be Chewy, Lori, Vallis, and the last one was not Brandon. I'm trying to think of Willie Wilson. Willie Wilson was the one that came in fourth. So that's interesting to me, only in that the person I really don't want in the top two or anywhere near it is the one who came in third, Paul Vallis. He has no business running for mayor. He hasn't been active in city politics for a while, and what he has been active in has questionable results. That is running various school districts around the country. He's just a perennial candidate, people. So let
me throw in here that the guy, the crypto king, he gave a lot of money to kind of more establishment Democrats.
Yeah, he did.
And he may have thought Chewy was one of them, and maybe Chewy is moving in that direction. Our own state representative, Kelly Cassidy, who we're very fond of, basically came out criticizing Chewy too. And so that's caused a little back and forth in our own community. We go back with Chewy for a long way, kind of through politics and Harold Washington, and we like him. And there's a lot of things I've liked about Lori Lightfoot. And what I don't want to see is an attack by progressives at whatever level they're at or how progressive they are, fighting each other in our city where we really want to bring people together. It's kind of a complex situation.
Yeah, exactly. And facing facts, I mean, starting with the last election, and I think we had Don Rosen who said this at the time, and he was a Lori Lightfoot supporter. I don't think he is now, but he said, you've got two progressives running for mayor. We've never had that before, when we had Tony and Lori in the runoff 4 years ago.
Simpson said it last week on our show too. Dick Simpson.
Say that again?
Dick Simpson said that same thing last week.
Oh, yeah. So I think what you point out is we really do need to look at and behave as progressives in a way that does not split us all in pieces. This is just an election. I mean, it's not the end of the world. So let's show some example about how to run an election with one another, rooting for one another's activism, maybe not for their candidate. And I know we're going to run out of time, so we can just move on in the.
I just want to say one more thing, though, about elections that people need to realize. We have not seen a lot of promotion of it, but there is a new police oversight board in Chicago that goes into effect, and there will be district councils for every police district. And later on, we talked with Veronica Arreola, who is a candidate for one of those slots, and she will fill us all in on that. But know that in February, when we have the election for mayor and for alder people, we also have election for this new position, which is the Police Oversight Council. And people need to get in on it. Katie, you got anything on the Marriage Act being passed, or just to be happy?
Just Yahoo. Yahoo. I mean, interesting that it's on the same day that the Respect for Marriage Act passed. I mean, in the same piece of
legislation.
It's not legislation. It's a presidential thing. Anyway, that also interracial marriage was also protected. So that's good. I will say this was a great week, starting with Brittany Griner coming home, being released rather. Of course, nothing ever is simple because the exchange of prisoners caused all kind of havoc for some who saw this gun runner guy who had been in jail here, Russian, being returned as something of a mortal sin. We who just passed the largest defense budget ever. So we are big gun runners here, folks. I hate to tell you, we're really the biggest on the planet at this point and have been for a while. So anyway, Brittany's home. That's great. She's also pretty engaged in making sure people's attention continue to be on Paul Whelan, who is been in prison a couple of years now in Russia and was sentenced to, I think, 16 years for espionage, which everyone claims he wasn't doing.
Also on the sports front, we now know the lineup. It's going to be Argentina versus France and Morocco and Croatia. Morocco was quite a story. They will go at it for third place. And I did see a really wonderful sports reporter, an Arab woman, I guess, in Toronto. She works for a Canadian broadcasting company. Her name is Cherie Ahmad. And I would call your attention to her for some really analysis with some great politics. I saw her on TV. And
I look forward to seeing her. The other thing that we talked about was the unexpected death of Grant Wall, soccer journalist supreme, who is beloved by soccer fans for all he's done for the sport. A lot of people, because of the way he was treated in Qatar, were suspecting foul play, and I guess his wife confirmed that there was no foul play, that in fact he died of an aneurysm. Yeah. So very sorry for that loss.
Rest in peace, brother. There's severe weather going on, but knowing that, there are people in our city and throughout the country who are homeless, who are out and exposed to the weather. And you have a little bit of information for us on some orange tents that we might expect to see.
Well, the orange tent guy, and he actually met with the city because he wanted to coordinate when they do their cleanups of the homeless sites. He would like for them not to remove or take these orange tents, which are actually fishing tents for people who fish over the water in the
ice tents. Yes, ice fishermen.
Thank you. That's what I was looking for.
Well, you help me, I help you, because that's where we do that.
Yeah, we always did. Okay, so yeah, that combined with yesterday in City Council, and I don't know what happened about it. Once again, the Bring Chicago Home ordinance, which was also co-sponsored or led by our alderwoman Maria Haddon, who has done probably as much work as any alderman in the last 2 years on figuring out solutions to homelessness, thanks to the encampment at Tui Park. She's gotten a lot of grief from it, but I want to be one here who says, I appreciate the dignity and the research that you have put into this conversation and the fact that you have spread it through the entire city council and said, we need to be responsible. So rock on. And
Maria Haddon's a good one, and we're glad we have her. Let me see, I had one other thing I wanted to share, and I'm blocking what it is. So our next guest is, we hope, is Steve Yellen, who's over on the border with El Paso and Juarez, and we'll see if he's actually there with his phone going, and we will.
Well, he's going to talk about the migrant surge at the border, right? That's really good that you're covering that.
There's about 1,500 people a day coming across the border, and there's going to be a change in the law that so they don't get sent back. And they're releasing people on the streets of El Paso, a warm and wonderful city, with the 22nd largest city in the country, I believe. And as you know, I've spent a lot of time down there in the last 20 years. And it's a welcoming city too, and they've been really good on this, but they are being overwhelmed. So
yeah, they are. Title 42 is the one you want to ask them about. That's about to expire, and the right wingers are going, please don't let this happen. So ask them about that when you talk to them, I guess. The only other thing this week at Livermore Labs in California, there was an event that they've been trying for my whole lifetime to do, and that was a nuclear fusion reaction that created more energy than it consumed to make. This does not mean anything for tomorrow, but for some tomorrows about 10 years down the road, who knows? We'll have to ask our nuclear knowledge.
Well, we'll check. I'm really excited about this. I worked in a movie with Keanu Reeves and people where it was, what was it called? It was an Andy Davis movie where the idea was to turn water into hydrogen.
Right.
And anyhow.
Chain reaction.
Thanks, Kate. Yeah, I
Thanks,
play
Hal.
another bad guy. Anyhow, Katy Hogan, it's really great to have you here. And if you decide to stick around and ask some questions of our pal Yellen in Texas, you're welcome to do that. Right now, young producer Hal and the engineer Hal over there is going to play us a little bit of tune, and we'll be right back with more Live from the Heartland for the week of December 17th here on the left end of your dial at WLUW 88.7. Okay, hey, we're back with a little bit more Live from the Heartland, and I'm really honored and happy to be bringing on a longtime neighborhood activist, neighborhood and beyond, who's going to join us to talk about the newly created Police Oversight Board here in Chicago and her candidacy to serve on it. The one, the only Veronica Arreola, who I believe is currently the director of Hispanic Serving Institution Initiatives initiatives at the University of Illinois, Chicago. Good afternoon to you.
Hi, great to be back on the show.
Good to have you. It's been a long time.
It has been.
Well, more often now that you're running for a big office, and if you get it, who knows how many times you'll be coming on.
Exactly.
So, one of the issues in Chicago has always been the police and the relationship between the police and the community. And there have been all kind of efforts and, from people with patrols following the police to boards and citizen reviews, et cetera, a lot of proposals. We've come up with something. It's a Civilian Oversight Board, to my understanding. How about describing what it is, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, so the whole idea grew out of the community conversations that happened after the summer of 2020, when there was a lot of public conversations and actions around police violence against people and race relations in this country. And those of us who in the community may remember, there were two different ordinances that were ideas that were out in the community. And those two groups came together to create the ECPS ordinance, the Empowered Communities for Public Safety ordinance that passed in summer 21. And that established a citywide commission of about 7 people who serve to be the people's voice in terms of public safety and police accountability. But within that ordinance also created a district council. So Chicago has 22 police districts. And so every police district will have a 3-person council whose job will be to work with the community and solicit comments, feedback, and ideas, and then work with the police to enact those things. It is police accountability. So if someone has an issue with the police, they can come to the council meetings and voice those things. We'll also, the 2 people I'm running with, Evate Jones and Marilyn Pagan Banks, we will we'll want to set up something so people can submit information online and not just have to go to our physical meetings once a month.
Go ahead.
As I say, but then also our job will be also to meet with the district police officers and the superintendent and commander to talk about what we're hearing on the street, what the community is saying we need. If someone feels like an area is over-policed or under-policed, what we need, and to carry that kind of conversation on.
What was the inspiration for this? Or was there a model from another city? Are there the only other places doing this, or are we unique?
We're pretty cutting edge on this. This is the most progressive police accountability bill in statute and ordinance out there in the country right now. So what we're doing is highly experimental, highly forward thinking. And so it's really, which makes it even more important for us to elect really strong, progressive people to each of these district councils so that they not only succeed, but succeed in the way that the community wanted and envisioned them to be.
What was the process to lead up to this? I know that Michael Harrington was the representative from Network 49, and he served with other people from around the city to help to create this. But there was, in my understanding, there was a little bit of struggle going on. Can you give us a little picture of that?
Yeah, I wasn't. My slate mate, Evate Jones, was definitely more in the room during those conversations, and as well as Marilyn Pagan Banks. But what I had witnessed in terms of being a community organizer in this area is that there were 2 competing ideas on how to hold the police accountable and have community input. And those 2 proposals, the tension between them was in a way that they were competing. And at a point, it did feel like the city council and mayor were trying to pit those 2 things together. And instead, those 2 groups came together and created the ECPS ordinance in order for something to actually move forward instead of just fighting against each other and having it not succeed.
What is the name of the new ordinance, real clearly and soft?
The Empowered Communities for Public Safety.
Empowered Communities for Public Safety.
Yes.
A little disclosure, I'm a member of the steering committee of Network 49. And we did have a process where we interviewed the I think there are 8 candidates who are still on for this district. What's the name of this district?
It's the 24th district.
24th district. And so we had a process, and we were looking for people who had these strengths: verified experience in community organizing and working with residents and groups on issues and causes that relate to improving community relations, personal experience with the good and bad in Chicago policing, knowledge and experience with local policing issues and police accountability work, and a strong commitment to promoting community health, safety, and police professionalism. So that was the criteria by which the community organization I'm a part of looked at the candidates. And we did select your slate, actually, and that's why we're having you on. And that slate includes yourself, Veronica Arreola, and Edvette Jones, and Marilyn Pagan Banks. Yeah. I know Marilyn well. I don't know Jones at all. Maybe you tell us a little bit about your slate and how you ended up hooking up together. Because you meet as a slate.
Yes, absolutely. So as I said, Evite was part of the team that was working on the ordinance itself and writing it. And he's an artist, a photographer, a writer, and is really deeply rooted in Rogers Park. Marilyn Pagan Banks is also deeply rooted in Rogers Park and is the president of a Just Harvest, which helps to address and reduce hunger in the Rogers Park area. So they're just two powerhouse people, and the coalition that helped create and get the ordinance passed, as I said, wanted to make sure that people who win these seats are in the spirit of the ordinance and of the movement in the community. And I was asked to think about running for this position. I've wanted to run for office for a really long time, and this really seemed like a really great space for me to take all the experience I've had as a community organizer and put it to use.
Well, tell us a little bit about yourself and why you wanted to be on the board. You've shared a little already, but how about
Yeah, I've been doing community organizing over here in West Rogers Park in the 50th Ward for a few years. Lived here for almost 20 years, and just seeing how, and I've also raised my daughter here. And so as an educator and a parent, I've really seen what it looks like and what it feels like to have the city overinvest in policing and then underinvest in education and other programs in the community. We do not have any really good teen programs over here in our side of the district for over the summer. So teens don't have a lot of productive things to do. And so they're hanging out in the parks, and that's great. Teens should hang out in parks. But then, then people are like, oh, there's teens in the park, and then call the police on them. And then they get harassed, and then they get jaded, and jaded teens don't always make the best decisions. And so what I want to do is take that experience that I've had and bring good conversations to the table. It's not just about getting teens out of the park or anything like that. It's about how do we bring better programming to our parks, to our park district spaces. How do we create economic opportunity? How do we take this money and really invest in our public schools, our neighborhood schools? How do we address mental health issues in the neighborhood without, there are a lot of things that we ask the police to do that they are not trained and should not actually be doing. Right. We have lots of professionals in the city who should be doing lots of different things that we ask the police to do, and social workers are just the first thing. But we shouldn't be calling the police to address people who are experiencing homelessness. And all of those sorts of, it just kind of trickles, and I'm really seeing all the connected dots and want to bring that conversation to a wider audience.
Veronica Arreola, you mentioned earlier that there was a hope that the people who ran for the district council boards were in this, they ran in the spirit of the legislation. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering if if the nomination process has really done that. I mean, there was a lot of rumors that a lot of real heavy police supporters were going to get in on it. do we know about that in the 24th district or beyond?
I don't know that particularly in the 24th district. We have at the moment been challenged by our petitions were challenged. And there was a news piece, a TV news piece that talked to the person who did the challenges. And he said he was paid by FOP. So that's the
Friends
only
of the
thing.
Fraternal Order of the Police, not the
Yes.
Friends of the Police, the Fraternal
Yes.
Order.
Yes. So that's all we can go on right now is what we saw in the news in terms of pro-police folks. And we're not anti-police. We just want to be able to hold them accountable. But there was also a piece in the Sun-Times last week that one of the candidates talked in a different district, talked about he comes from a family of police and he wants to help. He wants to be on his council to help protect the police, and that's not in the spirit of the ordinance.
No, it seems to me the legislation is about trying to improve the police department, which everyone seems to know we do need to improve it. And there are a lot of us out there who have certainly gone up against the police, but certainly have respect for some police and believe that we need police.
Yeah.
It's like I don't know, it's just everywhere that we go, there's a dividing line now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Like I said, there are things that we ask the police to do that they shouldn't be doing. But we also need to recognize that they are overworked as well. And, when I'm tired, I make mistakes, and police should not be so tired that they make fatal mistakes on the job. There are really great, good ways for us to be able to improve policing in the city that don't require us to take sides in terms of like good cop, bad cops. Like there are policies.
How will this the challenge to your petitions get played out? Is it still going on, or?
It is still going on, and hopefully it will be dismissed soon. There's nothing in the ordinance that our lawyer is very our lawyer believes everything will work out in our favor. I'm really confident that we will be number 2, 3, and 4 on the ballot on February 28th.
Number 2, 3, and 4. And who's number 1?
One of our opponents. I'm not going to say his name.
Okay. No, okay. Yeah, well, if they get a hold of me, I'll have to have mine. But if they don't, that's the way it is.
That's right.
So, what are your hopes to come out of this? What do you see this? If despite the challenges, despite the ongoing divisions among people, the real hopes for what this is going to bring to the city and to the communities that are affected by police activity?
Well, number one is that most people don't understand that this is happening. The city has not been publicizing it. The mayor has not been using her soapbox to publicize it. This is a great way for people to get engaged in the city and be civically engaged and community based. So that's a disappointment. But number 2 is the fact that I think our goal for our district, and I know others I've talked to have the same goal, is to create engaged spaces for communities to have conversations about public safety. The CAPS meetings I've been to and other people have talked to me about CAPS meetings is that which CAPS meetings will stay around.
Tell people what CAPS is.
That's the community policing that has been in Chicago for probably 30 years. And CAPS meetings are run by police. The CAPS program is part of the police department. These district councils are not part of the police department. We are independent of them, but we are supposed to be working with the police in collaboration and partnership. What we want to do is center the community, the neighbors at these conversations, and not just be a place for complaining and for people to say, we want people to come and tell us when their garage has been tagged, but not just complain about it. Let's talk about ideas. What are things that are happening?
Are you guys actively campaigning? Are you out in the ward?
We are, yes. I've been out knocking on doors over the weekends. I know we've been also calling voters, going to events.
I don't know. I know in our ward, there's been particularly both Maria Haddon as well as Network 49 and the local Democratic Party have been pretty supportive of this development of this entire process and have talked about it a lot. And so I hope that there'll be a good turnout in the 49th Ward. It's also the time we elect a mayor and our alderperson. What is your sense about the activity around the city with this project? Is there a lot of energy going into it, or is it?
I think there's a lot of energy, but again, it's still a large part of this campaign is public education, just that this is a new body. These are new positions to be voted on. We will most likely be the last thing on the ballot. Have people just keep going, mayor, alderman, and then keep going, vote for your 3 district council representatives.
So one more time, why don't you lay out for folks exactly what the district council will be able to do and what your hopes are for the district council, because you'll probably get elected. Maybe not, but probably.
Thank you. The district council's job is to be a liaison from the community to the police and the police to the community, and do that by holding monthly events, town halls, workshops, public education meetings, in order to solicit information from the community and bring it back to the police. Another important part of our job will be going forward, will be working on nominating the people who sit on the citywide commission. And those people are really working hand in hand with COPA, the Civilian Oversight for Police Accountability, the police department, the mayor's office, on who gets to be our police superintendent overall, the city. What does the police budget look like? And so those are really important things that those people will be nominated from the council members. So it's important for who's in the district councils and about who will be, in regards to who will be sitting on the citywide council.
Right, because the district councils, I guess they select a total of 14 people, and then that goes to the city council, and they then put a recommendation to the mayor, and she gets to choose between, I guess it's another 14. I'm not sure the number.
I think it's 7, but yes.
Yeah.
So she will, whoever, I don't know who the next mayor will be.
You mentioned the mayor. Has she been supportive of this process?
I have not heard a lot from her about this, so I think that you can gauge that by her. You use that as her gauge of her level of support. Again, this is a brand new. We are electing 66 people around the city to represent their communities in terms of public safety, and we have not seen a big media blitz, PSA blitz from the mayor's office, and that's disappointing.
Well, this is the start, because we're going to spread the word all over town and around the country. Veronica Arreola, I want to really thank you for coming on. And I'll be looking forward to seeing you around the neighborhood.
Thank you. See you around.
Thanks for sharing this. And everybody stay tuned. We'll be right back. We're going to take a short musical break, and we'll be back with more Live from the Heartland here on the left end of your dial.
Alberto hits his brother on the back of the head. Looks to the north as he starts to get up. His brother, still sleepy, grumbles it's not light yet. If you want a new life, what's a few minutes wait? Darkness on the road and over the land, into the laws and out of the hands from those with so much and no show of heart. You think it'd be crazy to ask for a small part. Spotted an eagle in the middle of a lake, resting on cactus and feasting on...
Okay, welcome back to more Live from the Heartland. And now, those of you who've been regular listeners to the show know that periodically I take off and I go to El Paso been working with Athletes United for Peace and basketball in the Barrio. Become real good friends with Steve Yellen, who was the guy who introduced us to Beto when we had Beto on the show. And I talked Steve into going down to the border of El Paso and Ciudad Juarez and talking to us about the influx of migrants who have are arriving at the border every day and coming across the border and into El Paso. So, Steve, here, welcome to you this morning.
Thank you, Michael. Appreciate you having us on, and appreciate you trying to educate your listeners and folks in the Heartland and really all over the country as your listenership increases. I've noticed all over the world, actually, but what's going on the border is pretty amazing. I'm almost without words. November 15th is maybe the date we need to talk about for a second. I have a couple of people for you to interview here at a soup kitchen right here, a block from the Mexican-American border. And we'll talk about their trip and how they got here to the border. But November 15th, a judge named Emmett Sullivan in Washington, D.C. said no more Title 42. And next Wednesday, Title 42 will be nixed. It will be all over. And what is Title 42? For all Americans, you need to know this because it's just at the consequences. I think I don't think we can foresee what's really happening in the next month. It could be world changing. What's that old fable about the butterfly flaps its wings and 3 days later, 3 continents away, a hurricane? This is kind of what's happened. On November 15th, Judge Emmett Sullivan said no more Title 42. That's the previous administration, the Trump administration, had incorporated this from a 1940 law, which basically says, hey, the CDC can stop all immigration at the border because of the COVID-19, right? Because of the possibility of spreading a disease. So it really stopped much of immigration. And the people in South America, in Nicaragua, in Venezuela, where we're getting thousands. Last night, I wish I was here last night. I'd show you a picture. I'll send you a picture. Thousands, probably 1,000 to 2,000 people waiting across the river. Michael was unbelievable. I'm like beyond words. And I came down here. I wanted to reach you. That's why I was so busy last night. But I'll send you the picture. They waited across the river. It's like freezing out in El Paso. Now, usually it's warm here, but it was like 40 to 38 degrees. And in the middle of this migration of 1,000 plus people, somebody screamed out, "You've made it!" It was unbelievable. They all applauded and made their way. Of course, they want to be caught now. They're seeking asylum. All right, and it's another whole discussion we need to have about the 4 ways really people can cross the border into America. But that's another whole interview. All right, now Title 42. Per Judge Sullivan is being nixed. So no more Title 40 starting next Wednesday. Well, people in these countries know about that. So they're heading north because they know they can't be stopped for seeking asylum at the border. And they're coming in the thousands. And the system is just not meant to receive and welcome thousands of people at a time. 25,000 probably in the next, in the next 30 days, yeah, starting now. And David is one of them. David, I wanted you to say hello to Michael James. He's the one we're on the radio with. And he's from Nicaragua. Brenda Mendoza, his family cousin, right? La familia, Brenda, see, is in New York. And she is sending airplane tickets for he and his brother to go to New York sometime today. But he was one of those that crossed and took them 7 days. See, 7 days from Nicaragua.
Yeah. Sí, 7 días, 7 days.
And he speaks very good English, better than my Spanish. Okay. And I don't know, Michael James, David is a wonderful young man, smart. I've spoken to him now for about an hour. He's the kind of person I would love to hire for my restaurant or my business or my whatever. Here in America, we lack labor. There are 3 to 4 million jobs open right now, and we need people like David. He's got a telephone. Okay. He's got the wherewithal. He's smart. I just heard Veronica Escobar, our wonderful congresswoman, speaking about this and saying, you know what, let's pass immigration reform. Let's help people like David, all right, get more educated, help him, bring him into American life, and let's help get him a job and be part of a taxpayer base. Chicago, your city, your state, Illinois, you need money. You need a higher tax base. All right, you know that. There's money problems. And this is one of the answers, I think. Anyway, he's speaking with, I'm not sure whom, but I'm bringing him to the airport later on today. I'm sorry I'm rambling, but there's so much.
Hey, Steve, let me butt in here. And, you know, one of the things I said early on in the show was how El Paso has been such a welcoming place during this crisis. And, you know, you have a history before that wall was built. You had a history of people crossing back and forth all the time. People in El Paso working, in Juarez working in El Paso, going back and forth. It's gotten really, it's changed a lot in the last few years. More and more people coming, seeking asylum. There's a big wall. People were getting sent back to Mexico. El Paso, and you and I drove around a few months ago, went by soup kitchens, and people were, you know, being very helpful and supportive. But I would assume that you're feeling a little overwhelmed right now.
Very much so, Michael James. I'm outside one of the shelters that helps house, home, sleep, feed the migrants coming across. David is one of them. It's a wonderful place on Father Ram Street, 7th Street in downtown El Paso, not far from the Armijo Center. We have basketball in the Barrio, where you are our official photographer for. It's right down that block. But Michael James, it is overwhelming. Our mayor, who's done a great job, Mayor Lisa, he's caught in a kind of a political crossfire. He's wondering, should we ask Washington, you know, and say that that it's an emergency here? Should he declare a state of emergency here on the border? And with that comes so many political things that I just don't know about. I'm trying to learn about them, but it's just above my head right now. He has not declared a state of emergency, where I assume we get more funding, more this, more that. But yes, it is overwhelming. Getting back to your point, it is way overwhelming. And tonight, we're going to get another probably 1,000 to 2,000 migrants crossing. And I'll try to report to you on that, where they go. They go to a center where they're processed. And again, the reason they're coming, no more Title 42. They're allowed to seek asylum per our law, per our Constitution, saying, hey, we are in danger in our home country. And the CDC no longer is implementing Title 42, which means they're in danger of spreading disease to America. So they're allowing them to cross. Therefore, they come. So you'll see another thing tonight.
Let me just do, you know, the beyond the asylum process, there's a reason people are leaving Latin America. And I do think it's a bigger discussion, but U.S. policy in Latin America has probably engendered a number of the situations that have led to this, where people are leaving. You know, we do have a kind of an imperialist role we've played, where we use people, and when we don't need them, or when we don't need the raw materials or the labor, you know, the situation changes, and that's clear. Your mayor said nobody can keep up with that regarding the ongoing influx. And then you have a governor who we've talked about a lot, who's kind of a right-wing guy named Abbott. He claims that groups that are helping the migrants enter the U.S. illegally, he calls for an investigation. He asked the Attorney General, further to the right, Ken Paxton of Texas, to investigate non-governmental organizations, though he doesn't name any groups or provide any evidence of his allegation. These non-government organizations call the move an attempt to criminalize their work. So we know there's a lot of good people down there on the border trying to deal with the situation, and they're being stabbed in the back by the governor.
Well, I'll give you another example, Michael. Unintended consequences. Again, the butterfly flaps its wings, or, you know, how did World War I start, right? the Duke got shot, and then boom, one domino after another, all right, started dropping. And next thing you know, we're in a worldwide war. Well, this is what's happening. The governor has asked that all trucks, commercial trucks, be stopped on the bridge and be searched for migrants, because he's worried, of course, of the new influx of thousands of the coming of the migrants. So what does that do? It slows down business and commerce across the bridge, across the border from Mexico to America. Mexico, by the way, our biggest trading partner, by far our biggest trading partner. So the trucks used to have to wait maybe an hour, Michael, 40 minutes, an hour, maybe two on a busy day to get across with the commerce. What is that? I'm talking about car parts and, computer parts and things that are made in Mexico. By the way, Chicago and El Paso, very much connected in this way. All your companies, your manufacturing companies in Chicago, pretty much every one of them has a twin plant here in Juarez, Mexico, right across our border, 100 yards from where I am, which means they get labor and they make parts and they get things done business-wise, and they bring them across the border. Okay, those trucks are being stopped. How long does it take now? Because everyone is being searched. It takes 1 to 2 days. I'm talking about 12 hours to 36 hours. And the truck drivers, they're there in their truck going, hey, I need some food. I'm kind of hungry. They are not going to put up with this. So what have they done? And I'll do that maybe tonight or tomorrow. I'll go out to Santa Teresa, New Mexico. The state is just a few miles away. And there's another border crossing there. So all the business and commerce is going from our El Paso, Texas bridges and border to New Mexico. The truckers don't want to wait for 2 days. So unintended consequence, but that's bad for Texas. So that's all politics though, right? We have to see how that affects.
Steve, this is good. This is what I wanted, was to have you right there on the border. And you did mention Chicago and El Paso. There is a connection. And you played basketball at University of Texas, El Paso. You are the color commentator for the UTEP games. And unfortunately, you did not come to Chicago when UTEP played DePaul. We are the Loyola radio station, but I also teach at DePaul. And you got me to go take pictures of people who had played in El Paso or in New Mexico, including Sean Harrington, who was paralyzed defending his daughter. Russ Bradford, our pal, wrote the book, All the Dreams We've Dreamed, about basketball on the West Side. I went to the game and I met a bunch of your friends from the UTEP team. And I met a bunch of guys from Chicago who had played at UTEP. And I just want to point that out, that there is a strong connection between El Paso and Chicago, not only on the basketball front, but on the humanitarian, serve the people, do the right thing front. So thank you, Steve Yellen.
You're welcome, Michael James. Listen, Chicago, El Paso connection permeates my world actually to a ridiculous degree. And it all started about the same time in the early 80s when assistant coach to Don Haskins, our Hall of Fame coach, Russ Bradford, came here, Chicago guy, and he started recruiting all our great basketball guys from Chicago. And they put us into the NCAA tournament 7 straight years. So since then, we've had a great connection. But about the same time, that's when the twin plant started up. And the twin plant is basically just going across the border to Juarez, Mexico. And all those Chicago manufacturing companies opened up big plants to produce, to make, to manufacture their product, and then bring it back to America, back to Chicago, and to finalize the product and sell around the world. It's huge. And Bradford, the coach of UTEP, the assistant coach at UTEP, and this twin plant project, it all started at the same time. So since the 80s, yes, Chicago and El Paso have been linked in very many special ways, including, and up to today.
I'm sure that some of those people crossing the border are going to end up in Chicago, and we will welcome them.
No, Michael, for sure, because you need labor. You need people to fill jobs, and that's where they're headed. And most of them will get asylum and say, okay, you'll get a court date, an immigration court date, which you'll have to report back to El Paso, to our immigration courts, maybe in the next 1 or 2 years, but they'll head to Chicago. David, heading to Nueva York. David, say hi again to Michael.
Hi, Michael.
Yeah, hola, hola, Michael. And we've been using the Google Translator app, and it's been amazing. The conversations we've had this morning with David, but he's headed off to his cousin Brenda Mendoza in New York. I'm going to take him to the airport, he and his brother, here in a few minutes. Yeah, it's amazing. The world's changing. And I can't tell you what the consequences will be when all this business and the truckers move to New Mexico. And we have thousands again tonight coming through the port here to El Paso. I think it's going to be national and international news because so many other things will happen because of this, Michael. It's crazy.
Well, Steve, I want to thank you. We're running out of time. I'm going to. You're our guy on the border, and we will be checking in with you. And we want to thank everybody who is paying attention to this.
Well,
so,
they need to pay attention.
Thank your new friend for me too.
David, sí, adios.
Hasta luego. Buena suerte. Muchas felicidades. Viva la gente. Okay. You've been listening to the Live from the Heartland show. You may be watching it. If you don't know how to watch it, you can see it at youtube.com/heartlandmedia/videos. It's also on Can TV and Spotify and Google Podcasts. And we will be back next week. We're going to do a little Christmas tour down at the Cultural Center with the Buddy's store. And I would like to thank the people who make the show possible. Certainly WLUW, our home base, Katy Hogan, Lynn Orman Weiss, Tom Clark, Hal James, and certainly all of our guests today and every day. And just know that if you're looking to talk to me at any length, I will be in person, so to speak, at Archie's Cafe on Sunday afternoon, where I have a display of a number of my photos, and my photos are also up at the Common Cup here in Rogers Park and down in Andersonville at Scout. Okay, that's it. Have a great day. Thank you, Steve Yellen. Good luck to your new friend. See you next week. Do good in the world. The world needs all the good that we all do. All power to the people.
David, no passport. Charlie,
I
got a passport. David, so she's translating for me.
Yo lo dejé en casa, no me lo traje.
Oh, okay. Allá está. Okay. Está bien. Okay.
So how did he cross without a passport? Asylum? Did he say asylum?
Yes, asylum.
Okay, so David, good example. I'm just saying asylum, Title 42, I think next Wednesday actually, but they let him across and he's on his way to Phoenix to New York. Gracias so much.
No, de nada. Sí.
When I asked them to get their suitcases and their bags, this is what they showed me, because I want to take them outside and have a couple of photos here in the beautiful El Paso skyline. Check this out. Where's your bag, Charlie?
This is our bag.
This is their bag right here. This is it.
It's a soul. That's a soul, sir.
This is it. That's what they've traveled. You guys are two courageous young men. They have traveled from
8
South
hours
America.
travels. That's all.
This is unbelievable. How many days? 7 days? 8 days?
Here?
Yeah, to get here.
Okay.
Incredible.
9 days.
9 days.
10 days.
I'm proud of you guys.
From Nicaragua to here.
I'm proud of you
10
guys.
days.
Unbelievable.
Yes, sir.
These guys are going to be great New Yorkers.
It's
We're
very
gonna
hard. It's very hard. It's very hard.
Of course it is, but you're courageous young men and no possessions, basically. These guys are my new heroes. Jobs in New York City waiting. I'm going to call your cousin, Brenda Mendoza, and make sure she gets you okay at the airport in New York. Okay? Okay. Charlie and David.
I'm Charlie.
Bienvenidos to America.
David.